chocolate, cherries, and chilies. 3 ingredients that I believe work well together, and you can find it all in this brownie. Come on, let's get started.
Todo queda sabroso.
Today we're continuing in our month of chocolate series with these rich, decadent, fudgy brownies, which are made with the 3 C's: chocolate, cherries, and chilies. So the chocolate that we're using today is in the form of cocoa powder, and it's really going to lend to the chocolatey, fudgy flavor and color for these brownies. The cherries that we're using today are of a frozen variety. Now, whenever I use fruit, I tend to want to use fresh, but sometimes it's not the season. Super expensive. Quality just isn't there. So that's why sometimes I'll use a frozen product. And the chili that I'm using today is a Chipotle chili. I really like using the Chipotle pepper because it has not only the spiciness that I want, but it also has some of that smokiness and a little bit of sweetness that's going to give these brownies a real depth of flavor. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to melt 4 ounces, 1 stick of butter. Then in a large bowl, I'm going to add 1 cup of granulated sugar as well as a 1/4 cup. So that's 1 1/4 cups. Butter is melted, it's nice and hot. I'm also adding about a tablespoon of oil, olive oil in this case. Then we're going to add a 1/2 cup of that cocoa, but I'm going to sift it because if you notice, the cocoa powder is very crumbly. We don't want that. We want it nice and smooth. So we'll just sift this into that butter sugar mixture. And that's pretty significant if you ask me, so it really helps to sift it. We're also going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, as well as 3 eggs. Now these are fairly small, they're like a medium sized egg, so if you have large eggs, maybe just add 2. And again, we want to mix this vigorously. As soon as you get everything combined, don't do it right off the bat because this cocoa powder is so light and airy that if you start at the beginning mixing vigorously, the cocoa powder is going to go all over the plate. So, but now that it's incorporated, I can do a little bit more vigorous. Now I'm going to add a teaspoon and a 1/2 of vanilla and 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. Now at this point, we don't want to mix it too much. We don't want to incorporate air. If you incorporate air, you're going to get a more of a cakey type brownie. I don't want that. I want more fudgy. We're going to add a cup of those frozen cherries, and then into a blender cup, I'm going to add 2 of the Chipotle peppers. I like to taste the spice, but if you just want a hint of spice, then just add 1 chili. A little bit of that adobo, which it comes in, and we're going to add about 1/2 cup of those cherries with a little bit of that juice just to help it puree. Now let's puree it. Then we're going to add that chili mixture into the bowl. Okay, now we want to take our baking pan and we're going to add some oil to that baking pan because we don't want our brownies sticking. There's nothing worse than a pan full of stuck brownies. Then we're just going to pour it in our prepared pan. Now for the most important part, we're going to bake this at 350 degrees. You don't want to overbake this. If anything, you want it underdone. Okay, so our cherry chili brownie is done. As you can see, it's just done. Still a little bit soft in the center. Perfect. That's the way I want it. Now we're going to let it cool before we cut into it. This brownie brings back so many fond memories. When I was a little kid, one of my first jobs was a paper route that I would deliver every Wednesday around my neighborhood. And after I would finish my paper route, my mom would give me $1, and I would go down to the local bakery right down the street and get a brownie, and it was delicious. And I look forward every Wednesday to do that paper route. Okay, here's the truth. I did have a paper route, and my mom did give me $1. The problem is, I didn't actually do the paper route. I would take the newspapers and I would dump them in the alley behind the playground. And I'll go back to my mom and say, I'm done, just so that she can give me that $1 so I can go get that brownie. And you know what? I'm not even sorry. It was well worth it. Sabroso.
Todo queda sabroso.